just to start it off, did you like were you always a freelancer? Like how did it go with you? Were you always a freelancer, always an entrepreneur, or did you just switch like from being an employee to an entrepreneur? How was it for you? Tell me about it.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks so much for, having me here today. And I'm excited to share kind of some of my story and experiences with people. That's a great question to get it started.
Yeah.
And I tried being an employee one time
All right.
when I was 16 years old. I got a job working at a veterinary clinic. And,
Okay.
I grew up I always did all sorts of little odd jobs for money around the house, mowing the lawn and washing cars. And then I'm the oldest of four in my family, so I would always do babysitting, and you know
Uh,
I'd babysit for my family, and then the word would get around that I was a good babysitter, so I do a lot of babysitting stuff. Um, but I really really hated that job because it was so boring, even though I really loved working with the animals, which was why I took the job. Um, Even with how much I love the animals, I still hated the job because it was just too too much to be, cleaning and walking the dogs and like not having any intellectual stimulation on a real level. Um, and so when I went to college, the plan was to get a job and to go into the workforce. To become a veterinarian because I knew, okay, I don't want to be the vet tech who cleans up everything. But, in my head, I was like, maybe still the doctor part would be really, really cool. You get to do surgeries, all sorts of fun,
mhm.
intellectually stimulating stuff. But then in college, with a combination of just more kind of boredom through the classes and
Mhm.
thinking about, do I really want to do this for 9, 10 more years to get the degree I'd need to become a
Wow.
veterinarian? Or do I want to, start doing freelancing? And the reason that freelancing for me became something that I was considering is that just kind of for side gigs and to make some side money, a side
Mhm,
hustle,
mhm, mhm,
I had started going on Craigslist, and I'd always been on Craigslist mostly for like trading and bartering or buying stuff. Um, but I started checking out the gig section, and I started finding all these different writing gigs that I knew in my head I would naturally be really good at. I'm like, ooh, I'm really good at that style of writing.
ah,
Um, and so I started picking up these jobs and getting pretty good recurring work from that. And it was just something that allowed me a lot more freedom. Even just thinking about it, I was like, do I want to be literally locked in to 12 more years of school and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans?
yeah.
This college I was going to was $50,000 a year. I had a
Wow.
$10,000 academic scholarship, which meant I was paying forty thousand
Very
dollars
bad.
a year, still a very very large amount of money. Um, and that's just to get your bachelor's degree. That's not talking about your master's and then your PhD. And like there's so much that you have to really commit to long
Mhm.
term. And with freelancing, I really didn't have to make any commitments to anything
Yeah.
other than doing my work that day and doing the work for that project. And I really fell in love with that freedom, and I've never looked back.
So then from freelancing slowly to an entrepreneur, like how does that switch happen?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So I think that inherently I was always an entrepreneur at heart, but I
Yeah, I can
didn't know what
say
all
from
the
bank accounts and everything, like you were doing something.
yeah. So I think like what happens with a lot of people who become entrepreneurs is there's other parts of your life where you experienced or exhibited entrepreneurial tendencies, but didn't have the awareness to go, oh, that's something I should entrepreneurism is something I should
Yeah.
pursue because I liked to trade my Hot Wheels cars in school,
Yeah.
like whatever it is that people do, I think does kind of prime them to be an entrepreneur. And for me, it was really just, these things that had been, I think, cultivated inside of me and
Mhm,
me actually finally having the awareness to
mhm,
pursue them. So I didn't think starting out, I'm going to make a shift from freelancing to entrepreneurism. I really just thought, how do I get more freedom?
right.
How do I build something that is more sustainable and reliable? Because what happened really, what forced me to personally make the shift was me and my husband were in a gas explosion. So things were
Oh my.
going, yeah, in a house. We were in our house cooking, and there was an explosion, and it really kind of financially ruined us at the time, because we had hospital bills and house damage and all these different things that we were young and had zero savings and preparedness for. We were, like, we're young and invincible, and then we weren't. um,
Noted.
yeah, and so that forced me to think, because when that happened, one, it was just a period of reflection. Like when you make a big mistake, I think that's often when you reflect the most. And then also at the same time thinking, or at the same time, I lost a lot of the contacts from the people I was working with and having kind of recurring gigs from. So in the freelance world, what can happen, or what happened for me, was I would pick up a random job, but if I
Hmm.
did a good enough job, it became a recurring job. And it was
Yeah.
always freelance. It was never like a, employee situation, but it was very reliable
Hmm.
until I disappeared for a bit, dealing with, like, being in the hospital and then just dealing with my life, putting it back together. And during that time, employers just go find another freelancer.
Yeah.
And now they've got someone else they're using, and they don't need you anymore because
Yeah.
they've got that person in the role. And so that's what happened. And I realized that freelancing at its best was only reliable for very short periods of time with any, typically one employer or one, client. And
Hmm.
that if I wanted to build something that was more sustainable and could survive more ups and downs, that
Hmm.
that would most likely be a business. And
Yeah.
so,
Yes.
be dealing with more clients than on freelancing is very one to one, and I think a
Yeah.
business inherently is trying to
Next
scale
to many.
past the one to
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what pushed me into it.
Makes sense. But if we are talking about your freelancing and then entrepreneurial journey, first writing, then graphic designing, then class blowing, if I'm not wrong, then
Yeah.
marketing, then consultancy, like all of that. But were you always self-aware that you should be in a position that you can talk to a lot of people? So your mindset and your business as well, as both of them coming from people, not from the things that you're selling. Like even in marketing, you need to understand the people and then sell something to them or market something to them. And then graphic designing, you're like doing something creative. Were you always like self-aware about the creativity, or like,
No. No,
no?
definitely not. So when we started, my first business with my husband, it was selling a smoking accessory called diffuser beads. And we bought airsoft BBs in these giant, like 250,000 to 500,000 bead bags. So like we
Okay.
had to help each other, like carry these giant bags of beads. And then, and we would buy them the way we'd buy them, because they were in bulk and like raw from where they were produced. There were
Mhm.
the beads, but there were also like extra plastic pieces,
Okay.
from the mass production molding of it. And so we'd have
Mhm.
to sort through and like pick out all these pieces that weren't beads, because we didn't want this like garbage extra stuff in our product, right? Like we want it to be a nice
Yeah.
product. But it gave us such a good cost that we could then actually make a profit on repackaging it into small jars and then selling, you know, like
Okay.
500 beads in a jar. So we had a couple different sizes. We had like a 500 bead jar, and we had a 1,000, and then a 5,000 bead jar.
Mhm.
And so with that, it was all about the product. I didn't really have the insights into customer behavior, into customers yet,
Mhm.
because I hadn't ever had customers before. Other than I'd
Yeah.
had clients, but clients are different than customers. Um,
Yes.
and and so this was really my first time dealing with any type of business, and it
Mhm.
was very, very product focused. I think at the time, 10 years ago, that was kind of the school of thought, was you focus on showcasing your product's benefits and solutions. Like that's how
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
sell
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. But through doing that, I was able to gain that firsthand experience, insights, and knowledge into the customer behavior. And I'd say really with the first business was when I started, um, at least subconsciously, really thinking about, why people buy products. Because like
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
selling them it,
Yeah.
not that it was a garbage product, but like if we're talking about, because it was a good product. But in
Okay.
terms of like, do you need this product, and is it gonna like massively change your life? Like, no. it's just a novelty. I would definitely classify it. It was a novelty product. So like
Okay.
it was fun, it was colorful, and it had some small amount of function. So that always led me to think like, man, why did someone just buy 5 jars? Like there's all these interesting things that happen in business, right? That make you think. You're like, why did that just happen? Why did someone behave
Yeah,
that way?
yeah,
Especially for me, I'm highly curious about people and like why we're all so different or like why we're all so the same. Um,
me too.
and yeah, and so
Maybe
business.
that reason of buying those 5 jars would be like you started it 10 years ago, right? Today, like today is like 2020, and 10 years ago 2010, and people have a lot of money just after the crash. They suddenly have a lot of money and they don't know where to spend it, and they're just buying like stupid stuff. I don't know, novelty
No,
or
that's
stupid.
definitely a part of it. Yeah. Yeah, or like there's the late night I was just at a Amazon conference recently, and
All right.
one lady, she said that her entire business, and she does hundreds and hundreds of thousands in sales per year. If
Okay.
not, I think she might be over a million, I'm not sure. And she says like 90% of it is like women who have credit cards shopping at like midnight
Yeah,
to 3
yeah.
a.m. because like when we're up late at night and we're bored and we're like, I've got money and I'm
Yeah, I've
bored,
got-
so let me buy some stuff.
but that kind of business doesn't like it, I don't know, I'm not very much experienced with the business, but I have this idea that it cannot sustain in this time that we are going through right now, like only in this time only like the business only the Walmart or like the Amazon stuff is going on right now, but not these kind of businesses. So like is it still running, these Beats business, is it still
No,
there?
no.
No,
So
no?
the
When did you
reason
close it?
that I shifted, yeah, the reason I shifted gears into the graphic design is the same reason I'm not still doing it right now, is that the margins were relatively low and there was a large amount of labor involved because of the sorting of the beads. So, and then we also ran into a supply issue where actually we would be running out of the most popular colors of the beads because we had 7 different colors. One of them was glow in the dark, and obviously that
Hmm.
was the most popular one, and
Yeah,
definitely a part of our success. Um,
yeah.
but we would run out, and we would literally drive around to every sports authority, to every you know, what were the other stores? Big Five, like every sporting goods store that would sell them.
Hmm.
We'd look every single place online, and they're just they would sell out everywhere. And so
Yeah, yeah,
it was like, okay, this isn't a scalable business if we don't have supply chain.
yeah.
And so I just didn't really necessarily want to work, or, I wasn't passionate enough about the product to
That's what I was
work
gonna
a
ask.
way
Like,
around that. Like,
let's get a little bit deeper, deeper into it. Like, why did you start at that at first place? Because like you saw that was an opportunity, or were you
yes.
interested because you were not, as you said. So why did you start actually?
Yeah, so I started because when I was 19, I was really, really focused on like, how do I make money? And I didn't
Okay.
have any resources. So my parents didn't give me any money. I, had a job, but was not smart about like what to do with the money. Like, I didn't have any mentors or advice or anything when it came to finances. I was like,
Teenager stuff.
totally felt like someone jumping into water who didn't know how to swim when it came to money, other than I knew how to make money, which I was like,
Mhm.
and I always had a very good intuition about this is what people want to spend money on, and this is not what people want to spend money on. Because I've always grown up in, I'd say, a heavily consumer focused mindset. And I mean, now I have also a very good perspective from the business and brand side, but like I love to buy things. I love products. I love the amazing, amazing array of of the things that human beings have created. And
Mhm.
so I think that gives me inherent advantage compared to someone who's like, that's a stupid product, or like that's dumb, or I'm not into that. Like I'm into all of it. I'm not into all of it. I wouldn't buy everything, but I'll look at any product someone's made and is selling and go, oh, that was a clever idea. I see why they're
Ah.
doing that. Or I'll be able to pick out at least some good things about
So
their
it came
product or
naturally to you
business.
to like to know the consumer behavior when they have a lot of money or they don't have a lot of like when they don't have
Yeah,
a lot of money, you can just sell them, okay, mask they are selling like crazy right now
right.
or sanitizer or anything. But you are saying that it came naturally to you to know the
Yeah,
consumer. So
exactly. And
you get
oh,
behind yourself like to know
um,
the reasons.
Can you repeat the question?
All right. So, but how did you actually get to know like what are consumer behavior like? Because you said you were
Yeah,
heavy in buying, so you get to
yeah.
know your reasons first, and then you look around.
So that's a good question. I would say it's both my consumer behavior paired with I have a very strong ability to I'm not sure what the exact scientific phrase for this is, but cognitively project my emotions into other people's situations. And this came through reading. So I did a massive, massive amount of reading in my childhood for two reasons. One, I grew up Orthodox Jewish, which meant on Saturdays I wasn't allowed to use electricity, spend money, or like do very like Sabbath is the day of rest in Jewish culture.
Interesting. Okay.
And in Orthodox Jewish culture, it's like very strict. You really don't do much at all. And so reading was like the only thing I could do to not be bored all day. And then
Okay.
two, I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. And so reading was always like a sanctuary for me. You know, like if I was feeling bad, I could start reading the book, and all of a sudden I was transported into this magical, awesome place. Um, and when you read, especially as you're a child and your brain is developing,
Hmm.
what you do when you read in someone else's voice is you actually your brain starts to project their emotions and their perspective into your head and your thinking, especially when you're really consumed and focused into the reading.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And I think it's easier to do that through fantasy and like heavily fictionized writing versus historical or more factual
So
nonfiction based writing.
all in all, it came from actually observing a lot of people how like because when someone is writing it is coming from somewhere, some stories, yeah, right?
Yes.
You're actually consuming a lot of stories, so that's how when you observe it, when you analyze it, you get to know like, oh, this might be possible that this product like can run or might not run, and like yeah. And then
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
then how did you switch to marketing consultant? I would like to know it more if you can just say.
Yeah, of course. So, you know, as soon as we started our first business, that's when I really started applying all the things that I'd learned in marketing. So, as I was doing copywriting, um, I've always been someone who, like, when I'm curious, I research things online. And I definitely want to talk about this because I get so many people, especially through my LinkedIn, who message me and they're like, I'm in digital marketing or I'm in copywriting. Um, I want to get better. I don't know where to start. I have all these questions. And,
Hmm.
you know, I totally relate to that because I was that way 10
Yeah,
years ago. And really, the best place you can start is spending like hours. I know that sounds like a lot of time, but spend
yeah,
2 to 4 hours every single day looking up keyword phrases that you're interested in and actual questions. Like type in your question to Google, see what the results are. If you don't get the results you're looking for, tweak that question because
yeah,
you'll get a lot of people don't know if you change up one word in your phrase on Google searches, you can get
yeah,
entirely different results
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah,
So I would just do that. I mean, I was fascinated in that aspect alone. I was like, whoa, I changed the word order and now it's completely different hidden websites. And people probably don't even know that these websites exist because they don't
yeah,
type in this keyword. And so I got into this really great habit of researching on Google and just spending a ton of time reading through things and trying to decipher information quality
hmm,
based on having that quantity to compare things against. So I think it's really confusing if you go online and you read one article about your
too much.
answer.
Yes,
If you
yes,
read 10 to 20 articles about your one question, you will have a pretty clear picture.
love that.
And about anything you could possibly want to know about. I mean, the internet's amazing, you guys.
Yeah,
Like, use it
yeah,
more.
yeah. Google is just like, I don't know. I think Gary said it in one of his video. Like, they treat Google like your mother. Like when you're a kid, like you have some questions, just you keep asking
Yeah.
your mother, right? Just
Yeah,
keep asking
until you
her.
get the answer.
Yeah,
You're like, but why? But why? But why? Yeah.
exactly, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing. But I want to get more a little bit more into glass blowing because
Yeah.
that's something that I haven't ever experienced. So just personally curious about it. Like how did you like what's glass blowing? How did you get into it? What's your story behind it? Like what's all of that?
Yeah, so again, I think for the past 10 years, I've been really focused on where are opportunities that I can pursue.
Hmm.
And so as I built up my sticker business and my graphic design business, a lot of my clients, and I was building up a very large client base of glass blowers and smoke shops, because they're all tied together. And in the United States, most of the glass blowers that exist are in the pipe and smoking industry. Um,
Right.
and so, because you guys know, marijuana is huge in the United States. Like, we're
Yeah.
legalizing it everywhere, and everyone wants a fancy, cool pipe to smoke out of.
Yeah.
And so I had all these customers, and I was trading them stickers for glass pieces. So a lot of them wouldn't have or couldn't justify in their head spending like $200 cash for a promotional item they were going to give away. It's not something they were going to sell and make money off of. But they could reason trading some of their pieces, because their pieces cost them their time more than their materials. Like the material cost is very low, and the time is really the
Yeah.
factor that makes glass blowing expensive. So I would trade for $400 worth of glass and flip
Mhm.
it for 300 and make more money than I would have cash on the stickers.
Uh,
Um, and after a while, it just in my head kept popping up. It was like, hey, if you made pieces yourself, like this
mhm,
this would be a business, and then you could have like the sticker business and the glass blowing business. Um, and what happened was I tried out the glass blowing, got
mhm,
into it, and right away it was a business. So I thought it would take time to build up like the skill set,
mhm.
to build up like marketing and clients and like a brand name. And what happened was it was just great timing on Instagram, where
Uh,
people wanted to buy glass. Like
yeah.
marijuana was just legalizing or about to be legalized, and everyone was like just recently exposed to all these glass pieces, and it had just become much more popular through all the different factors that make an industry grow, right? So like from trade shows, like all the trade shows had grown from having, let's say, 20 booths when they started in 1990 to
Mhm.
having, or 1996, in the 90s, to having like 1,500 booths at the trade
Oh,
shows now. So like that creates a massive more amount of desire and awareness. Also, just more
love
people
it.
being on social media and having things that they're
Yeah,
showing
yeah.
off. So like
That's what I
the
was gonna say. You're utilizing your marketing, like digital marketing
yeah,
power in like. I'm just
exactly.
guessing. You can tell it better that the glass blowing industry that is already there, the people who are already running it, they don't have much exposure to the digital because I'm just
Yeah,
supposing I haven't been to the United States,
yes,
but they are like
100%
kind of
correct.
old souls, and you're just utilizing the new digital stuff into the
Yeah,
old business.
yeah. And so I had the good timing where I was kind of one of the first like new school digital people who do glass blowing. And even still, I would say most of the glass artists, even ones who are my age, are
Mhm.
not heavy into social media for business. They're still like they use social media for social, to
Mm.
connect with other artists, and they the way and it is helping their business, because inherently when you're an artist you are the business, like everything you're doing is the
Yeah, yeah,
business.
exactly.
Um, but they're really not promoting their work in the same way that a business would like craft a campaign to promote their
Mhm.
work. They're just like, hey, I'm blowing glass today, look what I made,
A
right?
brand can do different stuff that a person cannot do, of course. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, certainly. And then there's the time factor. So an artist inherently has to spend most of their time creating art, which
yeah.
leaves very little time and energy left for the other parts of the business that
Mhm.
they have much less or zero passion about. So inherently they're probably not going to get done. Like, after they do all their fun glass blowing, they might
Uh,
do one post, but they also might not, because they feel really accomplished from the work they did in the
yeah,
artwork, that they don't need the kind of satisfaction sometimes that we
but
we get from.
your your satisfaction was coming from actually the business, not the art that was there. So
Exactly, yeah.
so
Yeah,
yeah, I get it.
totally.
Every artist need a marketer, I guess, because that's where
Yeah,
both get satisfied and the
yeah.
business is booming, right? If I'm not wrong, just you can just cut me out and just say, because I've just started comparing to you. I'm like, it's been just 3 years, so I don't know. You can just get me better. And like that is all good. Let's get into that. How would you suggest someone who is not into digital and just starting out, and he thinks he shouldn't be doing like all of that crap? Like,
Right.
if I'm a glass blower and I come to you like, oh hey, I saw you. like I saw your video there, and I
Right,
also do that. I don't have a great business, but I'm really
right.
good. I'm a really good artist. Like, what would be your suggestions be?
Yeah, so I think that there's two strategies. One is to, if you have enough skill, leverage your skill. So find a partner, be like, I am never going to be as good at marketing or as good at selling or the other parts of my business as I will be at my art. And especially with the amount of time that I'd have to put in to get even decent at it compared to if I
Mhm.
put that extra time into my art, how much extra skill level that would build. Um,
Yeah.
that it's much better for you to try and find someone and be like, hey, I have this amazing skill, and find someone who's a great marketer but doesn't have something for them to really market that they're passionate about, or that they see that they can really take not ownership of, but like a lot of leadership towards. So
Mhm.
I think for a lot of marketers, it's great to be hired by a company because you have a job, but
Mhm.
ideally you want to be leading a team. You want to be in control, full creative control of like your marketing strategies and implementation. And I think that that comes from working with either an individual,
Mhm.
typically like
Mhm.
one on one with someone,
Yeah. Yeah.
or it comes from I would say networking in specific ways. I think you can network yourself into opportunities, for example. So
Mm.
instead
Definitely.
of just messaging people online, like taking a piece of your artwork to
Mhm.
different in-person events. I think, you know,
Yeah,
even
that's a
ones that
good
are
one.
completely non-related, like take a dope piece of your artwork into a marketing event. Like, do you know how many people will be fascinated with you because
Yeah.
they're bored with all the
Yeah.
marketing stuff they're listening to? Like,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
they're interested because it's good for their business, but it's not interesting on the whole because they're like actually fascinated by it. The way that you come in with some artwork, they're going to be like, wow. Um,
It's a
so
lot of.
yeah, that would be my advice in one aspect. The other aspect, though, I would say is find your find your opportunity. So kind of the same way for me when I went on Instagram, that was my perfect opportunity because there was no one, I had no competition in essence of people who were going to market glass like I was going to market glass or
Mhm.
attempt to sell glass the way I was going to attempt to sell glass. So I wasn't competing on that level with almost anyone else, while at the same time everyone else had created a customer base who wanted to purchase the product I was selling.
I get it.
So
Yeah.
if you can market your product in a completely new way or
Mhm.
in a completely new place, so like that example with the trade show, if you can find a place where people are going to be super fascinated by your
Yeah.
product or business, but no one else has thought
Mhm.
to market there yet, like that can be one of the easiest, fastest ways for you to make a lot of money and build up a name
Advantage of
really quickly.
a first mover, right? First
Yeah.
mover advantage. That's the biggest call, right?
Yeah, but it has to be the right matchup. You know, like you can't just take
Uh-huh.
anything and be like, "Hey, there's no, people selling like cookies yet on whatever." Like it has to make sense. You have to have some strategy behind it still.
Makes sense. Let's get into that, like a nitty-gritty of it, like into details. Okay, let's say on Instagram and TikTok, like right now, because it's changing every day. Like, how would you suggest someone to actually, go into deep? Some not just glass blowers, but anyone who wants to go into deep into TikTok or maybe Instagram or maybe all of that stuff or LinkedIn per se. Like, what kind
Yeah,
of
again,
content, how much, but like really details. How many
yeah,
times a day?
so I would always start with especially if you don't have a lot of time to dedicate, like the less amount of time you have, the more focused I think you have to be on
Mm-hmm.
where you're spending your time. So if you're someone watching and you have like 5-6 hours a day, I would be a little bit more broad in what it is that you're testing and doing and researching and learning. But let's say you're someone, you're like, I really do want to get better at this, but I just can't put more than 30 minutes a day into it.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely start out, instead of just picking a platform and going with it, I would spend a pretty heavy amount of time up front um, researching where is an audience that
Mm-hmm.
no one that is available to me that wants my product that I'm not going to have competition in. Because again, that's if you don't have a lot of time, then that's almost your only advantage to be
Yeah.
able to utilize. Unless you have a lot of money to pump into like paid advertising, that can work really, really well. But be very careful and make sure you have other people. If you're going to do paid advertising, you've never done it before, get at least 3 or 4 other people to get advice from for each campaign
Mm,
or for each thing you're going to do, so that you can start to really build up quickly an idea of these are good things to do, these are things to avoid. Because if you hear from 3 or 4 people, take this out or you need to change this,
yeah.
it'll really give you the confidence to know this thing is not good.
Exactly.
Versus when you read online, sometimes there's not a lot of confidence in the information you're getting to be
Yeah.
able to apply it in a very progressive manner.
I
So,
call that leveraging other people's knowledge.
yes, exactly. As much as you can, definitely do that. But I would spend a heavy amount of time researching on Google. Again, favorite place, and look up where those, I call them micro communities, because it's most likely not going to be an entire platform. So
Mhm.
you're not going to look up, um, you know, where can I sell to, let's say you have a dog, a pet related business, you sell dog harnesses. So
Mhm.
you're not going to look up where can I sell dog harnesses, because the answers to that you're going to get are like social media platforms, your own website. It's going to be like super, super broad. You have to look up, you have to think about how to find a community without asking a sale question. So not where do I sell something in, but where are good social media platforms for dog owners?
All
And
right.
then you're going to start to get better answers. You're still going to get Facebook, you're still going to get this and that, but now you're going to also start to get probably some social media platforms that are just dedicated to people who like dogs. You're probably going to get some
Mm,
websites that are forums about people who are discussing dog questions. Like there's going to be these other things that are much
good one.
smaller in terms of audience size and competition, but
More focused.
oftentimes the customers are actually much, much more interested and devoted to that community. So I think that that's a new strategy I'm going to be trying out here in 2020 to a heavier degree. Um, and I think it's something that will work very, very well for other people as well.
Loved it. Uh, about the consultancy part, let's get some juice out of you, like about the TikTok, because you have been consulting some TikTok companies.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
let's get that out. So let's say I want to sell this mobile, and how would you start with TikTok? Or let's say take any other example of your own choice. That would be
Oh no,
great.
that's a perfect example because I have a friend. His name is Vadim on TikTok. I believe his, if you want to look up his TikTok account, it's I
Mhm.
break. It's either I break phones daily or I break iPhones daily.
Okay.
And what he does is he has Facebook groups already where over in Seattle that are like buy, sell, and trade type marketplace type Facebook groups. And through
Mhm.
that, he's able to get really, really cheap broken iPhones all the time. And so he buys
Oh.
these iPhones, they're already broken, but they look nice. They don't look broken. And so
Okay.
then he breaks them in all sorts of different ways on his TikTok. And because of that, he's able to build up an audience that's very interested in iPhones. And then he can link to a page that sells iPhone accessories, that has a directory of iPhone repair shops.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so, like, there,
Wow.
that's how a great way. I think that's a very, very clever way to use
Yeah.
TikTok, especially with the repair shop aspect, because he's giving free information very, very directly related to his videos. And then he's charging the shops a very low monthly on the back end for them to get very targeted customers that are
That's smart.
directly in their area. Which for
Yeah.
them is a hard marketing, business. And
Yeah. Yeah.
TikTok,
Yeah.
because it has such a wide reach, is proving to be pretty effective for them.
Great. That's amazing because reverse engineering, I was like, it's actually it does work. I think for him,
Yeah.
actually it does. How is it going with you? Like for personal content to the like B2B content, or I wouldn't say B2C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I'm in, I'd say, an interesting position where I don't have one clear kind of path I'm pursuing. Like, I'm not just trying to sell glass. I'm also learning and trying to become an influencer, which is its own thing outside of like glass blowing and the glass blowing business. And then at the same time, I am starting up my like consulting agency or like consulting work. It's not an agency because it's just me, so I don't really know what to call it. um, But starting up my consulting business, which also includes me, writing, getting paid to write in various aspects, speaking, a lot of different other things that are also outside of consulting. And so having this one account where I am testing out all three different things, I think hinders me a little bit in terms of being able to really maximize the growth potential of it, but at the same time is a much wider platform and audience for me to conduct experiments. And that's how I look at and think of all posts on social media. To me, they're all social experiments. Like, I am posting something
Yeah.
because I want to achieve something or want to see, get some type of information or data. And then I get information and data and I get to
Yeah.
analyze it and make, new guesses and hypotheses. And so to me, that's so much more interesting and valuable than the actual results of the experiment. Like, the knowledge I'm gaining from the experiment to me is much more valuable than the results, because I will
Love
be able,
that.
even if like let's say my TikTok account for some reason, like, I just started losing all of my followers and like it went to zero and then I had no reach, and for some reason, I think most people's fear would be, oh no, then everyone's gonna like not want to follow you anymore or listen to you.
That happens.
But if in that process I learned an incredible amount that allowed me to now go work with many other businesses, to me that's much more interesting than understanding how to work through a platform.
My mind works like whatever you're saying, my mind directly goes to Facebook Pixel. Now you have all the data, all the analysis of the audience that you have, and now you can just leverage it to other businesses. Like, you're actually experimenting and knowing how the platform works. That's the one thing. And second, how is the audience thinking on the platform?
Yeah,
So you,
exactly.
you can leverage it, like, I don't know, whatever the way you want. Like, maybe
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
maybe.
I think yeah, because I think that there's always I think as you grow in audience and attention size, there's several things that come out of it that if you utilize them or add them to your repertoire in the correct way, that you can never fall back down to where you originally started, even if you lose all your money, or you lose all your social accounts. So what I mean by that is, um, when I started out my journey, because of that whole house explosion, we were homeless for a period while we were building up our business. I will never ever be homeless again, because even if I lost all my money in my social accounts, I have people that I've connected with and built relationships with that I could tap into, who would help me, that I can still provide them with value to where I can get value back,
uh,
especially if I really, really needed it, that I've already delivered them hopefully enough value to where they would certainly reciprocate it if I asked. And that is so incredibly valuable, and something that I really think only comes through either like really massive in-person, like very well done in-person networking, like you're going out to events, or through social media. Like, you have to connect with other people in a meaningful way to build those relationships.
Love that. So you're actually literally saying, like, network is your net worth. You're
Not, I
literally.
don't like that phrase,
You
because
don't like
like
that?
my
Okay.
my net worth isn't, well, it is much more than when I started. Obviously, like when I was homeless and had zero, it was zero. Now I, own a house and lots of other very nice things, and have like, a business and other investments and revenue streams. Um, but I would say that the people you know and the quality of the people you know will dictate the quality of your life. So
Love.
I think that that's much more important than um, like net worth. I think that, quality of life is what
Yeah.
we're all really trying to achieve, and we put net worth into a very high like pedestal of what controls quality of life. But that's, I think, very much a Western style of thinking that we've pushed onto most of the world. Honestly, I don't think that's how human culture in general has developed for the most part. I think that we've really, for thousands and tens of thousands of years, put a really high value on family and on, society and cultural units. But now that we have so many products and businesses like never before to
Yeah.
sell things, we're very, very focused on that.
Uh, So before moving on to the last question, I just wanted to ask, like, because I approached you on LinkedIn and you responded very greatly. Like we had some issues over the connections.
Yeah, I'm bad with technical stuff, you guys. It's funny because like I'm all over social media, right? And people are like, "You're really good at like computers and technology." I'm like, maybe.
So anyone who wants to like talk to you or be your mentee or do like have a relationship with you, like I'm gonna share your LinkedIn profile, that's for sure. But
Yes.
where were you else? Where else would you see yourself to be connecting like more deeply? If I can share
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, really, what I'm focusing on right now, and I'm about to buy a new domain name for it. So, excuse the kind of bad domain name right now, but I have a membership website. I'm always going to keep it super, super low cost. So, it's $2.99 a month. And it's where I'm posting kind of all of my TikTok video tips. I have a series of short video tips that I add new ones to every so often that are 1 to 3 minutes long and just like really punchy, packed full of actionable
Yeah.
information and like here's some insight into how this platform works and how you can use it. And then I have different guides, so like a guide for B2B, how to
Mhm.
use um, how to get wholesale orders and promote your wholesale business on TikTok, and then how to use TikTok for the pet industry, how to get on
Mm.
the For You page. So different PDF guides that look really nice, have visual in addition to just text. It's also got articles on there, and it's got just a bunch of resources. So that's where I'm going to keep compiling, all my information in regards to TikTok. I'm
Mhm.
also going to be building out other resources for copywriting, for all the kind of information that I have really great experience and insights into and kind of proven success with. But right now, that website is my first name. It's Maayan, MaaYan.pubninja.com, and maybe we can get a link on there. It's
Yeah, yeah,
PUBNINJA.com. Um, and again, I'm buying a new domain name for that like today. That it's gonna be a really good one, related to TikTok. But
yeah.
definitely check that out. The other place is really LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I message everyone who connects with me, and I reach out to them, and see if there's any way I can provide value and get to know people better that way as well.
Wow. So as you were have your hands dipped in a lot of things,
Yes.
but now when can you look back, can you find out like the biggest failure that you have in terms of having your like mind all everywhere, like would you start with one or would you start with all of it, or how would it go when you look back now because you have done it everything?
Yeah. So when I look back now, I think that I'm really fortunate that I was so immersed, honestly, in very specific parts of the businesses at the time because it kept me from being overwhelmed. I think that, when I think back to how I felt when I was executing in the early stages of growing diffuser beads or of like any of these previous businesses, kind of up until now, it was very clear to me that there were like three things I should do that would
Mhm.
help. And I would just do those,
Yeah.
focus just on those three things,
Mhm.
and at the same time always have an amount of time or a freedom that I was allowing myself to pursue curiosity. So for example, I think it's helpful to have concrete kind of examples. So with my diffuser bead business, um, basically there was if I had an order, like let's say we got a wholesale order for 100 jars, like I had to fill those 100 jars. That was first priority because the shop wanted it out right away. And the faster we could get it out, the happier the shop was going to be, and the more likely they would be to reorder from us.
Yeah.
Like, especially back then, shipping times were much a bigger thing in business in general. Like, lots of businesses, you'd buy something, they wouldn't ship it out for a
It's
week
sellers,
or 2 or 3 weeks.
sellers,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and so if we could get it out in like 1 or 2 or 3 days, that was like a really big incentive for the shop just for that reason alone
Yeah,
to
yeah.
purchase from us again. So I would dedicate and we'd do that first, but I would always cut myself off after a certain time. So if it'd been 4 hours, I would stop filling jars of
Okay,
beads,
okay,
and
okay.
I probably should have taken a walk and gone outside, but I would like hop on my laptop and I would research something because after being bored filling jars and like
Mm.
watching a movie or like we did stuff while we were filling jars, but it was still very boring compared to learning. Like learning is one of the most stimulating
Yes.
things we can all do. And so to have, I think, opposites pitted against each other can be really helpful, like to have that opposing force in your life to drive you into the things that you want to do. And that's something I've always done, is not really think about what are all the things I need to do, but what's the one thing I need to do? Okay, I'm going to do that thing as hard as I can until I don't want to do it, until I can't do it anymore. And then I'll really, really, really want to do something else I need to do. And I
Yeah.
think that's an amazing, I haven't
That's a
really
good
thought
approach.
about that before, but it is a really good strategy that I've utilized, because the hardest part is starting.
Yeah.
Once you've started and you're into something and you're focused on it, it doesn't
Yeah.
really feel hard anymore,
It doesn't.
until you get to that point, and then you kind of enjoy doing it usually, but then
Yeah.
you feel that point and you're like, I'm starting to get exhausted, I'm starting
Yeah.
to, this is too much, and then you can stop yourself and have a real incentive and motivation to do something else that you didn't have motivation to do before.
Love that. That's the freedom that you can only get from freelancing or the business side
Yes.
of the. You cannot do this while you're an employee.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I would never go back, is like, I'll never be as productive doing one thing for 8 hours as
Yeah.
I will be doing four things in 2 hour shifts, for example.
Love that. Love it. Thank you so much for your time. I learned a lot. I hope someone else also learns a lot. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.